So in this video, I wanted to show how to quickly change additional shells with oh-my-posh and make them look amazing. And so if you've watched some of my other content, you know that I'm a big fan of oh-my-posh, which is a command prompt theme engine that essentially allows you to get really cool things inside of your terminal, inside your command line interface. And so what I did in previous videos, and I'll put those video links in the description, I went through PowerShell and I went through the process of how to make your terminal look like this, where you can see all of this goodness here. And I even, in one of my videos, talk about how to create your own custom segments if you're interested in that. This is a custom NBA segment. I do that in one of my videos. What I wanted to do here is actually go and talk about the additional shells that I personally use, and I'll show you how I customize those shells. And so the additional shells that I use are the Ubuntu shell, and so that's this second tab here that I have in Windows Terminal. And I also use command prompt a lot. So those are the two additional ones. So PowerShell is the one that I use and the one that I've configured in the past. And WSL as well as command prompt are two additional shells that I use. For those of you who are not familiar, in Windows Terminal, there are actually a bunch of shells that you can use. And with the drop-down menu, you sort of select your shell. And the ones, again, that I'm kind of talking about today are this PowerShell one, which I've configured in the past. I'll be talking about this Ubuntu, which is a Linux distribution on Windows through WSL. And I'll also be talking about the command prompt, actually. So the top three are the ones that I use pretty much every day. So without any further delay, I'll jump right into it, and we can open up the oh-my-posh docs, which I'll also link in the description, and we'll get set up with Linux first. So WSL literally is just running a Linux distro on Windows, and so I'll copy this first command here. I'll go back to the terminal, we'll go to WSL, and I will now run this command. This is the first command in the docs, and what we're doing is we are installing oh-my-posh from this endpoint, essentially. If I click enter, we will hit our first bug. That is okay. Essentially, it's saying that it cannot write to user local bin. This directory is a protected directory. I probably could figure out a way to write there, but I don't really want to do that. So what I have set up on my machine is a separate bin or binaries folder where I put other sorts of programs, and that's where we'll install to. And I actually think that this is a pretty common flow in Linux world. So there's actually a separate command here that takes in a directory flag and lets you put in your program as such. So if I copy and paste that one, I think this should work. We install, yay, installation complete. We've got oh-my-posh, and I accidentally turned on caps lock. That's no good. But now that we've installed oh-my-posh in the Linux world, we actually have to configure the shell. And so in Linux distributions, there's a bunch of different shells. Ubuntu ships with bash, so that's the one that we're going to go through. Here are a bunch of different shells. If you don't know what shell that you're using, you can actually run oh-my-posh git shell, maybe without the dash, oh-my-posh git shell. There you go. And that will show you what shell you're using. So here you can see I'm using bash. Now, to finish getting some goodness into my Linux CLI, essentially, I will take this command here, which is essentially saying run oh-my-posh, initialize it in bash in my shell, and you need to add it to your profile. And so if you've watched the other videos for PowerShell, let me go back to my PowerShell profile. This is essentially, the bash profile is essentially the same thing, more or less, as far as I can tell, as the PowerShell profile. And in my PowerShell profile, I have a way to configure oh-my-posh on load, essentially, on initialization when I launch PowerShell, and we're going to do the same thing here. And so if I show all of my files, you'll see that there's a bashrc file. Oops, let's get rid of that. This is what we want, a bashrc file. If you already have that, great, just go ahead and modify that. If not, you can create the file. I'm going to be using Vim. You can use any kind of file editor that you'd like. Here we are. I'll go to the bottom, and I will paste the command that I had before, which is just this eval oh-my-posh init bash. And then if I do exec bash, I think this should work. Great. And so now we have this awesome, oh-my-posh goodness, these segments. So it already looks a lot better than it did before, which I'm very happy about. But I actually wanted to explore something new. So let's go to the themes, and you can do this too. There are a bunch of awesome themes here. Just find the one that you like the most. I actually have one that I really like for my Linux distros. So let me find it. I think it's called, give me a second. Let's scroll through. You can see all the goodness here while I do this. It's called QuickTerm. So this is the one that I like. So if you click on QuickTerm, it actually takes you to a GitHub page, GitHub gist, I think. No, this is actually just a file inside the repo. And if you click on raw, then you can see the JSON here. It's got all this information. I'm not going to go into the details here. I do other, I have other videos where you can check that out. but I will copy this URL and I can actually input that as the theme that I want to use. And so that's going to look really cool. And so if I go back to bashrc and we go here, and we edit this, we can do --config, and I think we just put it in single quotes. I think this should probably work. If not, we can debug together. Maybe we should put a space here, but be smart. And then if I exec bash again, so cool. I really, really love this theme. And so again, there's a bunch of different themes, and you can go and play around with any of them. And you'll see here now I'm pointing to this theme that's hosted on GitHub. And so that is how I'm going to be setting up my WSL bash profile. So that's all there is for WSL. That's all I'm going to do in this video. I also wanted to show you how to set up stuff for command prompt. And this is a little bit more involved. We have to go install an additional program on top of oh-my-posh called clink. And so I already have oh-my-posh installed on Windows because I've done it in PowerShell. So if you do not already have it and you're just watching this video and you haven't done it elsewhere in PowerShell and you want to do it in command prompt, you will need to install oh-my-posh. I highly recommend using Winget. And here you can see that I have installed Winget. I'm using Winget list, but if you want to install oh-my-posh, you can just do Winget install, and then you can find oh-my-posh with the ID that you want. I guess I have the store version installed. You can do Winget search. Oh my posh should, wow, my typing is not good today, but that is okay. This should show some good stuff. So you can also get the Winget source or the store source, whatever. Get oh-my-posh on your machine, and then everything else should be pretty much the same that I'm about to do. So now what I want to do is on Windows, right? I want to configure my shell. I want to configure CMD. Okay, so CMD, this is pretty important. I thought this was really interesting. There's no out-of-box support for Windows CMD for custom prompts. So you have to use this thing called clink, which at the same time supercharges your CMD experience. So in order to do that, we're first going to install a clink, and again, I'm going to be using Winget. So I'll do Winget. Let's first search clink. I have installed this before on other machines, so let me search for clink. I see that there is this clink here. This is the top one. This is the one that we want. So all I will do is take this ID, copy it, and I'll just install that first. Boom. So as that is loading, I'll go back to here into the docs, and I will check to see what we have to do next. I'm getting a UAC. I'll click yes. Okay. So integrating oh-my-posh with clink is easy. We need to create a new file called oh-my-posh.lua in your clink scripts. And if we run clink info, then we can figure out where those scripts are. Right there, clink info. And then afterwards, we'll have to copy and paste this. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that I have installed clink. That's great. And then apparently if I do clink info, I might need to relaunch CMD. Potentially my environment variables haven't, oh, well, that was cool. Somehow I already have the profile set. I think I've probably done this on this machine before, but let me still walk through it. So if you're going through the same tutorial, you definitely will not have this awesome theme, which is another amazing theme, and I'll show you which one it is. You won't have that already. So I'll show you how to actually get it. If you go to clink info and you look at scripts, then you can find your directory that you'll need to open. If you go to File Explorer and we go home, and I paste this directory here in clink, you will see basically that I've already included a new file. I must have done this yeah, it looks like I did this about 2 weeks ago. Here is my oh-my-posh.lua file, and if I open this up, maybe we can open this up in code. Open with code. All right, you'll see that in this file, all I've done is use the exact same syntax that's in the docs, and I also have this additional endpoint. And you can see here the theme is called Kushal. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's the name of the theme that I'm using. And that's where you're seeing all of this coolness already. And you can see that another thing we're getting is recommended endings, right? Like auto completion, which doesn't exist out of the box with CMD. So I actually really like clink. I have used it before, and I've set up a bunch of machines in the past couple months. And it looks like I had this file laying around, but all you'll have to do is create that same file. You can follow the docs here and run this. Again, if you just have the default oh-my-posh init CMD, you'll have the default theme, but you can go and find the themes here. This one is called Kushal. Where is it? JJK. Here we go. that's this one. And I would just go here. You'll go to the GitHub again. You'll click raw, and you can copy and paste. And you'll see here that's essentially what I've done, right? This is the goodness. And so you can change themes really quickly this way. It'll take a little bit of time to load when you're pointing to a file on the internet, but that is totally okay. Anyways, this is already approaching 10 minutes, so really appreciate it and hope you enjoy the video and have an amazing terminal now in all of your shells.